Hey, good evening, good evening, good evening, man. I just want to welcome you guys back to the Conversation 9-8. And I appreciate you guys' flexibility. Moved it to today because yesterday I had to go pick my mom up and the flight got delayed, but hey, I had to be there for my mama. So I was there for my mom and I'm excited about it. But I wanted to come on today and discuss this topic for the week because it means something to me. And I'm looking forward to the topic, looking forward to the conversation. And again, like I've always said, I really do appreciate you guys and your continued support. It means more to me what you probably wouldn't know. But again, I won't be before you long today, but I think today's topic is a topic that is worth talking about, worth getting in and gaining an understanding on. And I'm sharing this with a few people, and then we're going to go ahead on and uh, uh, get started today. So again, ecstatic and excited and very appreciative of the continued support. But today's topic is one that I think that talking about a dynamic that I think many of us all deal with. And I try to, and it was funny because this topic I didn't really get this topic until late on in the week. And I was waiting and seeking. And I was like, God, what should we talk about? What are the things that we need to talk about? And the thing that came to me, and I was like, oh, you know what? Got you. So with that being said, I wanted to talk about tonight episode is understanding the difference between who you are and who you choosing to be. And I know there's a difference. And I know one of the things why it's hard for a lot of people to kind of get to, because most people would claim that, who they are, they know who they are. And that's just who they are. And they stand on that. And I'm not saying people don't, but sometimes we have to know the difference between the person that we are and the person that we're choosing to be. And that choice of choosing to be can be because of so many different dynamics, different situations. You know what I'm saying? It can be because of the certain circumstances that you're currently in. It can be because of some trauma that you're dealing with. It can be because of this, that, and the third. But sometimes there is a major difference between who you are and who you're choosing to be. And all of the times I want people to understand there's not always something bad when there is a difference. But we just, the reality is we just have to know that there's a difference. Now, Shep, you saying who you are, you're talking about you're talking about the difference between who you are and who you're choosing to be. Now, how you know there's a difference, right? How would you know that there is a difference, right? One of the first things that we have to do is come to the realization of getting to know ourselves, because so many times we don't even know who we are. We're pretending to be, we are pretending to be, or we're choosing to be something without really knowing the essence, or being secure and concrete of knowing who we are as a person. And a lot of times, we can get lost in trying to find ourselves, and we don't realize, because guess what? In our mind, that's just who we are in the day. And I'm not talking about you just lost in the sauce, but no, really trying to find out, connect with your why, connect with your identity, connect with the core being of who you are, connect with what makes you tick, connect with what do you like. And guess what? It's constantly evolving. It is constantly evolving. And sometimes we get caught up with being the person that we're choosing to be, instead of taking the time to get to know the person who we really are. And that can be a conflicting time in our lives. It can be very conflicting. The reason why it can be conflicting is because we will convince ourselves that because we've been making the choices to do certain things for so long, then we identify by that, and we say, hey, that's who I am. But the reality is that doesn't really line up with who we are on the inside, and then we find ourselves frustrated all the time. But we're frustrated because we are continuing to do the things that we have always chosen and made a choice to do, but it conflicts with the person, or it conflicts with who we are on the inside, and that causes some conflict. Now, getting to that space, right? Getting to that space is realizing that, hey, sometimes we have to just say, you know what? I got to get to why. We start asking ourselves, why do I like this? What is behind this? And really seeking to get an understanding of the person you are. And when we try to seek to get an understanding of the person we are, it can get to a space where we can learn ourselves a little better. We can learn the person that we are. We can learn about ourselves, and then we can start to get to know who we are and get to that space. Why? You know, as I've gotten older, what I realized is there's a dynamic between the person that I was choosing to be and the person that I was constantly changing and evolving with just the evolution of life. And I mean by evolution of life was I'm so different now. Who I am now is so different than who I was in my 20s, who I was in my 30s. You know, who I was, 2 years ago, a year ago. And I had to realize that, guess what? I can't continue to choose to be that person that I was before, right? Because it's different from who I am. And sometimes we can get caught up in choosing to be what everybody is used to us being. And instead of that, aligning to who we are. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm just saying, you know, we have to be cognitive of the fact that, you know, you can continue to choose to be something, operate in something that you're not currently at anymore. And by being in that space, we just have to be able to acknowledge that, like seriously acknowledge that, seriously get to a space of where, you know what, there is a difference. There is a difference. And then watch this. Some things that we do, we have to understand that we will have to make a choice to do certain things. And just because we make a choice to do certain things, right, that doesn't automatically mean that is who we are. And I'm saying that in the capacity of some things in some situations, we have to make a decision to do certain things that's the situation dictates. But that doesn't mean that is who we are. And so don't lose ourselves in the decision that we're choosing to make in that situation. And sometimes we had to get to a space where we know that there is a difference between what I'm choosing to do in this moment than who I really am. And don't lose ourselves in our choice. And that's what I wanted to talk about, is really understanding that there is a difference. There's a difference. I'm not talking about being fake. I'm not talking about being something that you're not. But sometimes we have to choose certain things, but don't lose ourselves in our choosing. And that's the real thing. And like, okay, sometimes we have to make some hard decisions. And I said it again. Sometimes we have to make hard decisions. And in those hard decisions, we have to stand on those things, right? And it may go against what we are, who we are as a person naturally, but we have to stand on those things for that reason. Sometimes as a parent, you have to make certain decisions and have to say no. Sometimes as a spouse, sometimes as a leader, we have to say and do certain things, right? But that doesn't automatically align. Not saying you're doing something bad, but it doesn't automatically align to what you naturally do. But that's okay. You just have to understand, don't lose yourself in you making those decisions, and know that this is not who I am as a person. And guess what? We have to get to a space to where we're comfortable with, sometimes there's going to be conflict with who we're choosing to be and who we are. And that is okay. It is okay if we know that there's a difference. What I'm speaking on is we just have to know that there's a difference, and a lot of people don't know that there's a difference. And that's what I wanted to get to, because there's a lot of times where we don't understand the difference, and we lose ourselves by saying what I'm choosing to be, who I'm choosing to be, than who you are. And then the other side to that is this, right? This is the other side. And this is something that I can attest to from a personal perspective, right? Sometimes who we choosing to be is in direct conflict with the person that we know that we are. And we can, and I can say this from a perspective of, you know, there's some things where we in ourselves, we can grow up a certain way or being taught the right things. And we can just intentionally go out and do opposite of what we were taught. And we were just, and guess what? We made our mind up. That's just what I'm going to do. Nobody going to stop me. And we're choosing to be and live a lifestyle, live something that is completely opposite. And then guess what? We have to deal with so much internal conflict because we're trying to force ourselves to be something that we're choosing to be when it goes completely against who we know we are. And in those times, and in those times in our lives, we just have to understand that you will not find peace in those situations. You will not find peace in those. You will not find peace in those situations because you know without a shadow of a doubt that ain't who you are. And I can remember living my life when I got out on my own, when I got in college, when I was living on my own, when I was had quote unquote the freedom to do whatever I wanted to. I got to a space to where I was choosing to live a lifestyle that I knew went against what I was taught. But the conflict became that I was rebelling against who I knew I was, and I was making decisions to choose to be what I wanted to be. And that was a conflict, that was an internal conflict that I lived through to this point to where I found myself in a space to where I didn't have any peace. Yes, I was doing everything that I wanted to do. I was turning up, had my own apartment, living how I wanted to live, but I didn't have peace until I had to get to that space to recognize that who I was choosing to be wasn't who I really was. And when I got to that space, I found peace. When I got back to that space, that's when I found peace. And and guess what? Everything that and watch this. This is the thing. Everything that I was choosing to do in that space in that place in my life, that where I was choosing to be a certain thing, I became known by the people that I met. I became known for those decisions and things I became known by those things I was choosing to do. But the conflict was, even though I was known by those things, I knew internally, I knew that this wasn't who I was. Right. And we can put so much time, energy, and effort in trying to build a reputation of being something based off of who we're choosing to be. But no, deep down inside, it goes against who we are. And the reality is, you know, internally that there's discord when you're living like that. And the best thing for you to do is come back to yourself. Come back to yourself and don't try to force that. Don't try to force it, because guess what? You won't find peace with it. You won't. Yeah, you can do a lot of things. You can go out and do everything and do all of the stuff that you want to do. Yes, you have the right to do that. You're going to do that. I mean, there's not knocking anybody for doing that. But what you're going to realize, and one thing that you're going to come to find out, that right there, living that way, you're going to be so conflicted on the inside, because you're going to try to live something and force something that's not who you are. Now, Shep, you're doing all this talking, and you're talking about all of this stuff. So what do you mean by knowing who you are? How do you get to know? Well, first of all, we have to invest time into getting to know who we are. See, there's a difference between knowing who you are and have an idea of who you are. And we had to get to a space where we can come to accept the crossroad of what we're choosing to be and who we are as a person. Now, who you are really is rooted in those intrinsic things, the things that connect with you down on the internal, intimate level, right? I know for a fact who I am, but I didn't get there overnight. It took me a while, and not just age. I'm talking about life experiences. It took me some things where I had to learn that, guess what? It's okay. It's okay not to have, you're not going to know everything all the time, and that's fine. But I've gotten to a space to where, okay, I'm comfortable with the person that I am, and it aligns with who I choose to be. And I know the difference when I choose to do something different. You know, like there's so much internal conflict. I'm a country church boy that grew up in the country. I ain't no street dude. I didn't grow up in the streets. I'm not from the hood. I'm from when I say country, I'm from the country. I am confident, and I am not only confident, but I'm comfortable with knowing that I don't have to try to prove to somebody else that I'm something else from them. I don't feel less than that because I come from where I come from. You know, I don't feel like I got to prove myself. I don't feel like I got to get out there and do all of these things for somebody else to accept me. No, that's not. I don't feel that way. I've grown to be comfortable with who I am as a person. And I would even say this, like, even with my walk, even in my walk and my walk with Christ and my belief in Christ, you know, I had to learn the difference between who I was and who I was choosing to be, right? Because so many times we choose to be something or someone else to please other people. We choose to be something or someone else to be accepted by others. We choose to be something or someone else because we feel like that's the right thing to do because of all of these external or social pressures. But getting to a space to where you know who you are, right, and whose you are can help you get to that space of balancing out, knowing the difference between what you're choosing, who you're choosing to be, and who you really are. And I had to get to that space, especially in my walk with God. And because so many times we can spend so much time in the church, you know, trying to fit this mold that everybody think, that we lose ourselves in the process. And I'm not talking about losing ourselves. And when you spend time to get to know who you are, that's when you know the difference, and you won't lose yourself because you know yourself. And that is one thing that I wanted to share, because I know so many people may be dealing with this. You know, like you try to you're maybe living a life where you may be living a life where you are trying to, you know, you're making all the decisions. You got your mind made up on how you want to do things, and you're going out there and you're doing it. But you finding a conflict that in, hey, I'm living this life, but I still don't have any peace. But it's conflicting with a lot of things that you may grew up with, you may have grown up with and grown up under, and things that you may have been exposed to that you realized that was consistent and good. But now you may be living a life and you're out there and you're living, right? And then you're frustrated because you're spending so much time, energy, and effort in what you're choosing or who you're choosing to be, that you don't even know who you are. And I've been at that space, and I wanted to just come and encourage you today that it's okay to just take some time to know that, hey, I don't have it figured out right now. And until you get to that space that you acknowledge that you don't have it figured out, you will continue to be in trouble. And that's a good thing in the sense of knowing that you need to take that time and invest in yourself to get to know yourself. Because once you get to know yourself, and there's a surety in knowing who you are, I will tell you there's a peace that comes, and that's what the Bible says, Philippians 4:17, the peace that surpasses all understanding. There's a surety that you walk in. There's a confidence that you walk in, that you know who you are. And then if you choose to be something for something different, you can always come back to your center, because you know where your identity lies. And your identity lies within the foundation of knowing who you are. Now, some people just don't know that there's a difference. And that's what I wanted to speak about, that there is a difference between knowing who you are and who you are choosing to be. I want to thank you guys so much for rocking with me today. Again, man, we'll be back next Saturday. And I appreciate you guys more than what you know. You guys have a great and wonderful day. God bless.